meteoric rise in politics, and you see a guy who deals with people well, who understands issues, who brings people together, and who has good judgment in moving forward. And I think what we need to do, Bob, is we need to stop talking about the old politics of left and right, and we need to pull together and move the country forward. And I think that's what Barack Obama will do for America.
You went so far as to say that you thought John McCain was, quote, and these are your words, untested and untried. And I must say, I had to read that twice, because you're talking about somebody who was a prisoner of war. He was a squadron commander, the largest squadron in the Navy. He's been on the Senate Armed Services Committee for these many years. How can you say that John McCain is untested and untried, General?
Because in the matters of national security policymaking, it's a matter of understanding risk, it's a matter of gauging your opponents, and it's a matter of being held accountable. John McCain's never done any of that in his official positions. I certainly honor his service as a prisoner of war. He was a hero to me and to hundreds of thousands, millions of others in the armed forces as a prisoner of war. He has been a voice on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he has traveled all over the world. But he hasn't held executive responsibility. That large squadron in the Navy that he commanded, it wasn't a wartime squadron. He hasn't been there and ordered the bombs to fall. He hasn't seen what it's like when diplomats come in and say, I don't know whether we're going to be able to get this point through or not. Do you want to take the risk? What about your reputation? How do we handle it publicly? He hasn't made those calls,
Well,
Bob.
General, maybe could I just interrupt you? If you're,
sure.
I have to say, Barack Obama has not had any of those experiences either, nor has he ridden in a fighter plane and gotten shot down. I mean,
well, I don't think riding in a fighter plane and getting shot down is a qualification to be president.
Really?
But Barack is not, he is not running on the fact that he has made these national security pronouncements. He's running on his other strengths. He's running on the strengths of character, on the strengths of his communication skills, on the strengths of his judgment. And those are qualities that we seek in our national leadership.
Well, let me ask you this. Senator Obama announced yesterday that he's going to Europe and to the Middle East. Most people think that he'll probably stop off in Iraq, where he hasn't been in more than 2 years. Why now?
I think this is a good opportunity. It's a window of time. The convention is late in the calendar this year, and he's got the window of time to go overseas, meet with foreign leaders. You know, we were meeting with him the other day, and as he said, he doesn't want to count his chickens before they hatch. But he recognizes this country is in such a plight, both at home and abroad, that no one can contemplate taking the office of the presidency without having some very good ideas about what needs to be done from the get-go. There's not a learning period in this job. The next president's going to have to step right into the job. He's going to have the policies there. And I think Barack is taking a very sensible view of this by going abroad and meeting firsthand the leaders at this critical moment in times of America's needs abroad.
General, what do you think would be the impact, let's say, on Iran, on the neighborhood around Iraq, if, in fact, Senator Obama is elected and he does announce that he's going to bring back the troops on a specific time schedule? As Senator Lieberman said, he's totally discounting things that could happen along the way. Would he follow that schedule no matter what?
Well, I don't think Barack Obama is discounting things that have happened along the way. I think the critique is more like this, Bob, that the Bush administration and Joe Lieberman in the forefront have from the beginning relied excessively on military force as the answer to all the nation's security problems. And what Barack Obama understands is that military force may have to be used as a last resort, but it's not the first resort. So let's take the case of Iraq. This administration went to a war it didn't really have to fight. Barack Obama called it like it was at the time in his speech early on before we went into Iraq. And once there, the administration relied excessively on the men and women in uniform. It failed to put in place the overarching diplomatic strategy and the regional strategy that was necessary to deal with Iraq's neighbors. It more or less invited Iranian incursions by threatening that Iran and Syria were next on the hit list in military actions and efforts in the region without having an effective strategy in the region. So when we talk about troop withdrawals from Iraq. Yes, I think the major muscle movement for the United States needs to be less reliance on military power and more reliance on all the other tools of U.S. power, including diplomacy. So it's within that vein that Barack Obama is talking about pulling troops back from Iraq. It doesn't mean that he's not going to be sensitive to other actions in the region. He's going to be much more sensitive to those actions than the kind of mechanistic, militaristic response that John McCain has habitually given. What I think we'll see from an Obama campaign is a regional strategy that does include dialogue with all of Iraq's neighbors, and in which the military component is one part of an overarching strategy to protect American interests.
Do you think that Barack Obama is going to put Hillary Clinton on the ticket? Would that be a good thing, General?
I'd love to see Hillary Clinton on that ticket, but I have a lot of respect for Hillary. I've known her for a long time. I think she's an outstanding person, but I think that's a decision that Barack Obama himself is going to have to make, and I'm sure he's weighing that decision.
All right. Well, General, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Hope we can talk to you again along the way. Back in a moment with a little analysis.